Greetings, ASA members. As district leaders figure out how to scrape pennies together to make the next school year viable, the U.S. Secretary of Education, that's our Betsy DeVos, is using the pandemic as an opportunity to advance her top policy agenda, which is redistributing public school funding to private schools. By intentionally misreading the CARES statute regarding Title I's equitable services provision, DeVos has disregarded the historical precedent of directing federal funding towards low-income students in public schools. Instead, her guidance and the soon-to-be-issued interim rule misinterprets the CARES Act statute by saying that funding should be driven by the total number of students enrolled in private schools in the district, regardless of poverty level. Funding that was allocated to districts based on their number of students in poverty. A classic double standard. Currently, 10 states have publicly indicated they will follow the guidance, while 8 states, including Arizona, have said they will follow the law and ignore the department's guidance. So DeVos has indicated she will issue an interim rule that will allow the U.S. Department of Education to go after states and districts for their refusal to send millions of dollars to private schools. While that rule is pending, districts would have to set aside CARES funding in escrow. Yes, set aside much needed money, potentially for months. Okay, there's 50.8 million students in the United States school system, and there's 5.8 million in private schools. I guess we know which slice of the pie Secretary DeVos cares about. And it's not those 50.8 million. Now, speaking of CARES funding in Arizona, if you are interested in the details, amounts per district range from a high of 17 million to the minimum of 50,000. And 50,000 is the lowest any school or district can receive, regardless of their title status or the number of students in poverty. I've attached a link to this message with the details. Okay, last week, AASA, our national parent organization, Stand for Children, and AFT partnered to launch the Protect Public Education campaign, which is focused on getting parents and superintendents to message with Congress on the importance of ensuring that the next COVID-19 Relief Act will include $200 billion in education stabilization funding needed to prevent layoffs of teachers and paraprofessionals and other education personnel, and that $4 billion would be targeted for the E-rate program needed to bridge that digital gap that has so bedeviled our efforts at virtual education and distance learning. Now, I'm going to include a link in this message where you can, with one click, message Arizona senators and representatives. And by the way, you can also push this link out to parents and others in your district. This is an easy thing to do to help this campaign. Now, back to Arizona. In the next couple of weeks, there's many resources coming your way giving information about the reopening of schools. Next Wednesday at 2 p.m., there's a webinar sponsored by the School Boards Association, by ASA, by ASBO, and by the Department of Ed. And this information concerns health protocols and considerations for reopening schools. We've got a link in this message to that webinar. Then, June 15th and 16th, ASA's digital conference. That's Monday and Tuesday, the 15th and 16th. Here's what we're including. Panel discussion, reopening rural schools. Another discussion, health and safety procedures for a new era. Then at noon on Monday, honoring Arizona's education leaders, a virtual experience. And that's our annual award ceremony. You'll want to see who's being honored for their educational leadership this year. That day, Monday, concludes with the secondary principals having a meeting about reopening their schools. Tuesday opens up with urban schools reopen. Here's how. A panel with urban superintendents. Then we have a panel, actually more of a presentation on continuous literacy learning in the new COVID era. And then at noon, Dave Hines of the Arizona Interscholastic Association on sports and activities. What will they look like this fall? And then finally, the middle school principals meet that afternoon to discuss how they're reopening middle schools. All of this is free. The registration link is in the message. I want to conclude by talking about the late President Kennedy, who reminded us that the Chinese use 2 brushstrokes to write the word crisis. One brushstroke stands for danger, the other stands for opportunity. In a crisis, be aware of the danger, but recognize the opportunity. We know there are dangers we're facing in the reopening, but what are the opportunities that we also face? Opportunities for change, opportunities for growth, opportunities for improvement, yes, and even opportunities for progress. So let's look for those together.